Hi there, everybody. Listen, some people think I look a little bit like Frank Sinatra, so I want you all to know that I'm not Frank Sinatra. I do not sing. I'm the type of man who will never snitch on anyone. I'll never sing. Other people, they say I look like, who's that fella, Dean Martin? No, Tony Curtis, that's the one. Some people say I look like Tony Curtis. Well, I'm not Tony Curtis either. He's a good-looking man, but I'm not him. The one who I think I look like, and people don't realize it until I tell them, then they say, you're right, you're just like him, is Jack Lemmon. Think about how Jack Lemmon looks. Think about his expression, and then you'll see if I'm a lot like him. As I've told you before, I am not an ordinary comedian. An ordinary comedian talks only about sex. He only talks about women. I have to pick up my dog here. Man. See, she's on the floor. Anyway, talks about sex. They talk about women, and they use four-letter words, and they think that is the most important thing in the world. And the truth of the matter is they get a lot of applause. They seem to be quite popular, and they think that's what the world's about. But I will not go into that game. I told you from the very beginning, my videos, my program is laughter from the heart. It's about the truth. It's a candid camera. I'm going to look at every experience I've had in my life, and I'm 75 years old, and I've had an awful lot of interesting experiences that are worth talking about. And I'm going to pick out these true experiences and tell them to you. They're funny, they're interesting, and I think you'll enjoy hearing them. But I do not have to, as these other comedians do, sell myself for sex and use dirty words. I was thinking about one experience the other day. I went to City College. City College was, in those days, like Harvard. I mean, it was hard to get in. You had to pass an exam. It wasn't like today. They let morons in there and study. When I went to City College, it was difficult school. You had to study hard if you wanted to pass. You had to pass a very stringent examination to get in. I remember we had our fraternity, Phi Alpha, across the street, and these people there, they used to be like the college students. They used to say, we're a group of hairy-chested men, hairy-chested men, hairy-chested men. They would bang onto their chest, and I remember the fraternity parties, they would order these big kegs of beer, and they would see that the entire keg was completely finished, drank, not a drop left after the party. Today is a different world. Today you just go on the internet, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, blonde, brown head, skinny, fat, lawyer, doctor, Indian chief, anyone you want, you get them on the internet. You don't have to go to the party, the fraternity. You don't have to drink the beer. You don't have to bang on your chest. I'm a race of hairy-chested men. Well, that's how they got the girls in those days. But what I remember best about City College was, even though I studied accounting, that was my trade. I never practiced it, just in my businesses. But I became a songwriter, I remember, in City College. I know the songwriting and the arts were uptown on 170th or 80th Street, and I went to the Baruch School, 23rd Street. But let me explain. I remember the school was located on 23rd Street, corner of Lexington Avenue. For those of you who lived in New York, maybe you remember in 1958, 59, when I was going to City College, they had the 3rd Avenue L. That was the elevated line, the subway. But instead of underground, it ran in the air. It was an elevated line, and it ran on 3rd Avenue, and everybody referred to the 3rd Avenue L, the L. Well, I would watch out the window every day as I studied, and I'd see the crew tearing down the elevated line because the city had decided they don't want these subways running in the air. They're too noisy. They take away from the sun, and it would be more pleasant for the city not to have these subways running above our heads. So they worked diligently every day. They were tearing down the 3rd Avenue L every day. The people worked more and more. I would look today and I see, oh, it's going down. I'd look tomorrow, a little more went down. And then my big break came when it was Christmas time, because these people, they cooperated with me. I don't know if this was all planned, but they did cooperate with me, because on the week of Christmas, I called the class. I said, look, come. They said, well, look what? I said, look out the window, look. And they looked out the window. I said, so what? Well, what am I looking at? I said, look, Noel. Now, that song I wrote, became very famous. It's too bad this other fella stole the lyrics from me and made all the money. But I was the one who wrote the song first, because like I say, this is laughter from the heart. This is the truth. And the truth is the 3rd Avenue L was down. On that day, there was no L. So, that's the story. I'm having a little trouble here with the sound today. I want to see if this video works out okay. But as you know, we'll talk more later. I'm going to come and look at the candid camera, see what happened to all my friends, and I'll tell you all the embarrassing things. But remember, they'll all be true, and they're worthwhile hearing. See you all later.